लोकेतिवम् पंचस्कंधामस्तां च स्वभाव शून्यान सम अनुपश्यति समः रूपम शून्यता शून्यतैव रूपम रूपान पृथक शून्यता शून्यताया न पृथक रूपम यद रूपम सा शून्यता या शून्यता तद्रूपम एवं वेदना संज्ञा संस्कार विज्ञानानि.
Now here, self. Self, actually, no sort of existence of separate identity. But you see, self, described, imputed on the combination of body and mind. So within Buddhism, like Weber-Sheikh and Sotantik, both accept Anatma theory, but still believe the composition of this body and something independent. Now this Madhyamika philosophy say not only that self, but also the basis of that self, distinct self. Self is the basis of that five skandhas. Also, in ultimate reality, does not exist. Or another word, does not exist as it appears. So now here one very important word is Gyangzati.
Also, even the five aggregates are empty of.
In Chinese translation, Heart Sutra,
in Chinese translation, it says the five aggregates are empty of inherent existence. There is no mention of the word even. Five aggregates are empty.
So since Chinese translation, the traditional original translation, missing that word, therefore Japanese Heart Sutra, in Japanese language or Korean language, Vietnamese language, also missing that word. Only Sanskrit origin, Tibetan Heart Sutra is mentioned that because of that Gangsa.
This has even
word.
Yes.
Even.
This has even.
So I check the original Sanskrit.
Yeah.
It does exist.
Yeah, it has even. Yeah.
So this you see teach us two because of the Dhamini
Two kinds of selflessness.
Selflessness of phenomena, selflessness of self. So both mentioned.
Yes.
If even that word there, then not only the self, the self, but also the basis of self also does not exist as it appears.
So this is the topic I keep coming to, and this is the very core of Buddhism. And it took me a few years of studying Buddhism to find out what is really the core of Buddhism, and it turned out to be this topic. So I realized that if I just talk, then 10% of it or 20% sticks, but remaining 80% is hard to retain in this format. So I thought if I record it, edit it, turn that into a video, then you can look at it in the future and revise, and maybe others can also get help. So the topic is the five aggregates and how it relates to our daily or say minute-to-minute practice. So I want to show you a couple of clips from my film that I made with the Dalai Lama, and you will see how important this topic is for him. All right? So, how do I pause this? Shift F11. Oh no. Control. All right. So you saw the wordings of His Holiness, and we will come back to it. There are two books that I have relied on in preparing for this talk. One is The Essence of the Heart Sutra, And second is Behave, the Biology of Humans at Our Best and Worst by Robert Sapolsky. There are other books by the same guy. It will be on YouTube. You don't have to take notes. So this person, he has other books like Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcer. It's amazing to see that how the teaching of Buddhism and the teaching of basic biology, how they don't contradict. They support, enforce each other. And I always say Buddhism is very different from any other philosophy you know. I want you to read this. What this text is saying, that no matter what somebody tells you, what the text tell you, what others tell you, you match with your own experience and see if the teaching accords with your experience. If the teaching doesn't accord with your experience, then you should be free to discard it. So when I saw this line in Buddhism, I was sold. I needed this freedom to check and inspect that whatever Buddhism is teaching me, does it accord with my experience? So whatever we will go through today, I request you to do the same. That see, does it match with your experience? So this is a biological picture of the five aggregates. And next to it is in Sanskrit. And that's what His Holiness said, Panch Skandha. So the five aggregates are what comes out of the five senses, the input into our consciousness: eye, ear, tongue, nose, skin, and the mind itself. So if you lose the ability to see, to hear, to smell, to taste, and even think, you will cease to exist, basically. So you think of all the people in your life that you love. How do they appear to you? Let me ask your husband. Do you have children?
I have children. We're not married.
You have children?
Yeah, I have children.
Okay. So when you think about them, what comes to your mind?
Their happiness, them being safe,
You remember them talking. Memories. And the memory is very physical. Like if you hug them or you talk to them, the smell, the sound, all that is what constitutes memory. So whatever we have in our consciousness comes through these five senses. And the mind is an addition because we can think things. We may be sitting here, but I can send my mind to Mars. And I know that Mars doesn't have oxygen, so I can start suffocating. This is the power of mind. So this is the sequence of how something reaches us through one of the five senses and mind. So you're looking at this picture. So biologically what's happening is that light is striking onto this board and is striking your retina. At the biological level, this is how you see things. Light hitting your retina. After that, the next stage is feeling. The feeling could be neutral, repulsive, or of attraction. So touch the chair you're sitting on. Just touch the surface. Okay. What do you feel? Cool? Hard? Surface. So you see how all those steps happen in a sequence. The finger, the touch, and the skin, there is electrical exchange between your finger and what you touch. Next is feeling. So you say smooth. We like smooth things. That's why smooth talkers are considered good, right? Perception is you bring from your mind that what does this remind you of? So just imagine somebody who has never touched a chair. What will that person say when they touch it? They will see something that they can bring up from their memory. So the perception is when you recognize something. Mental formation, and we will spend a lot of time on this topic, mental formation. Most of our suffering in life arises from that stage, mental formation. Consciousness is where judgment and decision making happens. So for example, you're hungry. You pick up food and it smells rotten. Will you be able to put that in your mouth, that food? No. Our system is configured to throw it out. The whole muscle cells, they act together and throw it out. You walk into a room and you see a person who reminds you of somebody that you know and you have good relationship with. So again, light hitting on that person's face reaches your retina. You have a feeling of sensation. Perception is you recognize that the person reminds you of someone. Mental formation is that if the person reminds you of somebody that you have good relationship with, you become positively disposed. If the person reminds you of someone you are not on good terms, you become negatively disposed, and the consciousness, that's where that analysis happens. And your reaction, whether you're polite or you're impolite, happens at that stage. Any question or comment at this point? So this is Buddhism. I'm an engineer by training. Lord Buddha must have been an engineer or a scientist. Because this kind of analysis of what we see, what we are, I had not seen anywhere else. That what makes us act in certain way. So these are, I called Magnificent Six, our five senses. And most people don't recognize brain as a sense, but our mind does give a lot of input into how we feel. You can be having a perfect vacation and you think of something happened to you when you were 5 years old. And then you watch your body, your stress, your blood pressure. Everything moves as if you are still living it. And human beings, we are the only creatures who can get riled up about an emotion from the past, now, and in the future. I can imagine that when I will have this encounter with someone, how I will feel. So those are the 6 entry into our consciousness. So in Buddhism, what you call I or me or you is basically a combination of what comes through these 6 senses. And what I'm showing you here is that the 6 senses, brain, eyes, nose, ear, touch, and tongue, all the input goes through this process, and there is interplay. They don't act independently. So you have an irritable thought, and at that time, whatever food is brought to you, you may not like it. You can be manipulated. I was reading a story of Merck, the Merck, the big drug company. So they had a product called Viax, and it was for heart, blood pressure. In their trials, they were showing that Viax was actually killing people. But they were teaching their salespeople to go and talk to doctors in a way to gain their trust. And the training manual had things like how to shake hands, how to look into the eyes of the doctors. And you're a banker, and when people pull these tricks on you. When you go to, buy something, and you watch the salesperson, they should be polite to you. But you realize that if the salesperson is polite to you, you're likely to buy from that. If the salesperson is cold towards you, you're not likely to buy. Like when you go to buy houses, smell of cookies have shown to people they like a house if the house smells good. So all these, there is interplay among these senses. Are you with me? So let's look at how our eyes work. Right eye, left eye, two portion, the halves of the brain, and the processing happens here. So at this stage, when the light hits, this is the first form. At that time, nothing else is happening. You just have sensation of light. And all the way here, the decision making happens that what you saw, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, and then you act accordingly. So here is an example of the eye sense. You see something. What does it look like? Snake. It looks like a snake. But actually it's a rope. Actually it's rope. But what happened to Sam is that the light from here hit his retina, and it was neutral feeling, but the perception told him it could be snake. Okay? And we human beings are wired to be very afraid of snakes. So they have done experiments on monkeys. Monkeys who have never seen snakes. They see a snake and they just go berserk. So just imagine this. We think that we get afraid of what we know. But this is one example where the mental formation can bring us a sensation or a fear that we have never encountered before. And what happens at the consciousness level? You run. Sometimes it happens so quickly that you're not even aware of what happened. So, do you have a small child that you have taken care of? So when the child is in impending danger, like somebody is going to, be mean to a child is about to fall, what was your reaction?
Concern, panic.
Panic, immediate, right? So there are billions of children, but the one that is close to you, you go through all this process and your mental formation tells you that this is my child, I need to do whatever I have to protect it. Today my second son had a minor surgery. He's one of his, there was a bent thing here in the nose and he needed surgery. So he was under general anesthesia. When he came out, he was groggy and his love for me was outpouring. Dad, I love you. You're the best dad. And I said, son, you don't have to feel too grateful because I get a lot back from loving you. There are 1 billion, young men of your age, but I don't feel the same way for everybody else. I'm working on it. But it is natural for me to take care of you because I am biologically wired. And then he rolled his eyes. Dad, you always go into that. But I wanted him to understand that he should not feel grateful that I had taken care of him. Because I am biologically configured to take care of my children. But if I'm not careful, what I can do, that I can harm somebody else in trying to protect him. And what would cause that? Michaela, what would cause that? That when I become irrational out of love for my son, that I'm ready to harm somebody else. I'm not controlling my mental formation. So today, the whole talk will focus on this, and you will see that how nice life becomes when you become aware of this. Sometimes it's monster, sometimes it's a wonderful thing, but watching this has become a passion of my life, watching what this is doing to me. Until I got this training, I was in automated mode. My reactions would be just reactions. And it was always after the fact I would explain why I reacted this way, how I got upset. So for something, that did not require to be upset. So let's move to the next. This is the biology of the nose, how the process, and it all comes to the brain, which is here. So the hormone, now it is known that your brain secretes a hormone that controls everything. We are slaves of this. So how we get manipulated by nose. You have a smell, and it smells like something delicious. It can be actually a chemical, nothing to do with what it smells like. But you will have all those feelings. You will get hungry. So if you look at perfumes, now it turns out that perfumes are nearly as bad as gasoline for the climate, the disaster. But when you spray something, you feel, smell like flower. It's chemical. It's just chemical. But your mental formation gets fooled by that chemical. And you feel positively disposed towards whatever the source of that smell is. It's the smell of your mom's embrace. It brings positive feelings. Because in your memory, you associate that smell with your mom. So when you get that smell, you have this bias that you feel safe. So this face, BBC had done a study that they are both composites of two political parties. And I'm just asking to do, your random guess. Which one seems more, stern than the others?
More what?
Stern.
High.
Yeah. This one, the right? Boy, you're good. You're very good. So the one on the right is the composite of Republicans. And the one on the left is composite of Democrat. So liberal and conservative. And for most people, it's very hard for them to explain. But in our subtle ways, we are hardwired to gravitate towards certain faces. So liberal and conservative, they don't choose to become one or the other. They're hardwired to gravitate towards certain kind of faces. So now you see here what happened. Again, this mental formation played a role. So stern faces, they convey the sense of discipline. Discipline, caution. So some people like discipline and caution. Liberal or this kind of face conveys more outgoing to the extent of becoming rash. And the truth, Buddhism is called the path of the middle way. The truth is somewhere in the middle. You want to be cautious. You want to follow rules. At the same time, you don't want to follow rules so badly that you lose compassion. Right? So just imagine this. When I watch TV, sometimes I feel that the two types of TV channels, liberal and conservative, are just to fool people, to keep hold of two types of people and just sell them both. So you will have same, retail stuff selling on both channels, but one will be MSNBC, other will be Fox. And this is how your bias can be manipulated. All right? So, as the Dalai Lama was saying, what we call I is actually a conglomerate of these 5 things. So if you lose all the senses and mind and this consciousness, you basically cease to exist. And this is constantly changing. So when if the temperature in the room is hot, the flow comes through skin. Your skin senses the temperature is hot. And you realize that you should not be hot. It could be bad for your health. You become irritable. And at that moment, somebody comes and asks you a question. So if the temperature was cool and comfortable, and if the temperature is hot, your reaction could be very different. Okay? So this mental formation, where has it come from? So billions of years of programming. Life, the earliest form, is supposed to have started 3.5 billion years ago. So our DNA and our genes have been recording what is good for us, what is bad for us from that time. And this morning, you encountered somebody who had a very colorful coat, and the person was rude to you. In the evening, you encounter somebody who is dressed like that. Don't be surprised that you will be negatively disposed toward this person only because in the morning you had a bad experience with someone who dressed like that. So this mental formation is not that you become a bad person overnight. It has been going on for a long time. And that's why the central practice of meditation is dealing with this. And different parts of the brain are involved in both. But until you start paying attention to what is happening here, it's very hard to deal with. I tell you, I was not aware of my biases until His Holiness the Dalai Lama in his teaching hit me on my head that I carry a lot of biases in my head, prejudices. And not all of them are bad. Some of them are good. Like if you saw a rope that looked like a snake, you don't have the luxury of going and checking. Could be poisonous snake and you're dead. So this nature's programming is not all bad. It is just this analysis for us to be watchful that when it is in your advantage and when it is not in your advantage to respond to what your mental formation is telling you. So at this point, let me take a pause and see if you have questions. So these are some of the characteristics of mental formation. It's also called concept. It's also called bias. So number one, it's a major source of suffering. Our biases, our concepts. Also helps us making quick decision. When you see a rope and it is dark, you quickly make a decision to not go there or run away. If it's a dark alley and somebody is standing there, you are afraid. So in your mind, you have that dark alley, a big guy standing suspiciously, not safe. Let's go away. So this mental formation helps us make those decisions. You see children, small children, how they want to stay with the mom or people they know. They don't like to go to strangers. So nobody has, like, you can barely talk to your newborn and tell that, hey, don't go to strangers. It is in them. We are constantly categorizing phenomena, things in our life. So if I bring something here, has got four legs and a tail and ears, you will say it's an animal. You don't have to know the actual, pedigree or geological categorization. You can call it an animal. So we are constantly categorizing things in good and bad, pleasant and unpleasant. It helps us make us decision. So computers are not able to catch up with humans yet because we can do these kind of things very fast. It is told. So we have 75 billion neurons. And the interconnections of them is more than every atom on this earth. All that helps us categorize things. Like like, what's your job? What is involved? What activities?
Driving a forklift, moving boards around.
So somebody says that, okay, go get that stack of board and it is this brand, this quality. What is happening? You are getting categories of your action. So our brain has huge number of categorizations. Family, not family. People of my race, people of not my race, people of my country, people of some other country. So we are constantly trying to divide and categorize people and things to make our life livable. There are some people, because of damage to their cortex brain, they're not able to make those decisions. And for them, it's very hard. There are specific brain damages that person can describe two things, but they cannot decide what is good, what is bad. And Buddhism believes in reincarnation. Christianity and Islam, many religions don't believe. And this is my compromise, that DNA is a form of reincarnation. DNA is a form of reincarnation. Let me show you another video.
That's really interesting because there have been a lot of studies lately about intergenerational trauma and how that impacts our DNA.
In one generation, your DNA changes, the epigenetics, it shows up in your next child. Racism, we are hardwired to be racist. Because over long time, if somebody showed up and the person looked different tribe, different color, then it was a battle of survival. So if you're not careful, you see someone who doesn't look like you, has a different sexual orientation, you become negatively disposed towards that person. It is in our DNA to have those kinds of biases. So mental formation is like the filters of camera lights. You're seeing something, it looks yellow. No, the object was not yellow. It's the filter. It's the filter that made it look like yellow to you. So in Buddhism, there's a term called bare attention. Bare attention. It sounds very heavy, like how could you have bare attention? It's all about for us to know our mental formation so that we know that what I'm perceiving, what is actually true, and what is my bias telling me. Are you with me? So this mental formation is like those filters of the camera, and we suffer so much by making judgment about people that turns out to be wrong. We make judgment about people simply because of the way they looked. We did not have a chance to talk to them. It's one of the filters showed up. That this person reminds me of somebody who was mean to me 10 years ago. You are negative towards that person. One Muslim guy blew up a bomb somewhere. Then we think that all Muslims are like that. No. You have bad apples everywhere, but you cannot generalize to mean it about the whole population. Yes, it is a filter. We are naturally programmed to make those judgments. But in this days and time, it doesn't make it right. So where does this mental formation or bias reside? So some in DNA and some in learned behavior of or our experiences of this life. So my meditation has been is that wherever I get a chance, suppose you are in your shift, you look like a calm guy. Is he calm? Okay. Then you have a gift. I am easily excitable. Okay. So for me, it has been that when I feel excitement, I analyze that what is making me feel this way. Is it something that is actually happening? Or is it one of my prejudice? So look at all these faces. And when you look at each face, each one of us has a different reaction. Each one of us has a different reaction based on how they look here. A smiling person always looks better than person not smiling. But if they remind us of somebody we know, we have different disposition. So the world around me, when I walk around in this world, I'm constantly seeing what my prejudices, biases are, coloring my perception. This is the most problematic because it prevents us from seeing things as they are. And people are not able to explain to you why they are negatively disposed towards somebody or something. Sometimes there's a genuine reason. And Dr. Alan Wallace calls it 360-degree view. There have been some people in the history that were bad. Hitler, Stalin, Mussolini, the list is long. But taking that and applying it to, say, taking example of Hitler, and then applying it to all Germans would be a prejudice. You can't do that. But the way you meditate on it is that suppose you're Jewish, you have Jewish family, and some of them had perished in the Holocaust. Bad. You encounter a German and you feel irritation or upset at that person. If you are a trained meditation practitioner of Buddhism, you will talk to yourself that this person has not done anything to me. I don't know this person. Why should I feel irritated or angry? I should not. So when you have this conversation with yourself, then you are able to overcome this mental formation. Now, you cannot blame yourself to feel hurt or feel bad about what happened to your ancestors. So you cannot blame yourself to have this kind of bias or prejudice. But through this conversation with yourself, you are able to not engage in action which would be wrong simply because of your bias. So this is the meditation that I recommend to people. Meditation is not all about sitting like a statue on a cushion. Meditation is in a state that you remain all the time. In fact, the Tibetan word for meditation is familiarity. You become familiar with yourself of what your mind is doing. So the form, feeling, perception, mental formation, I was confused when I saw these words, the English translation. Then I went back to the Sanskrit words. And when I am reading up to the Dalai Lama, I'm reading up these names, which you can't read. But let me translate it back to English. So this is Roop. This translates to appearance. Appearance. So whenever you have the sensation of something, the first thing is it appears. You touch your chair, it appears. You hear a sound, and the sound appears. Vedana is the sensation. Sensation. If the light is very bright, you have unpleasant sensation. If somebody was talking like, in that film, that's very unpleasant. It's unpleasant to be around such people, right? Sangya means naming something. Sangya, what we translate back to noun. In Hindi grammar, Sangya is noun, naming something. So when you recognize someone, you have named it. And naming is a good person, a bad person. A racial epithet, calling somebody a wetback, or calling somebody beloved. So at this stage, you have named it. And when you have named it, then it's easy to go to the next stage and then compare it with your mental formation, that what this leads to feel. So whenever you experience a noticeable emotion, love, anger, hatred, disgust, fear, sadness, or general discomfort, analyze what it went through. So life is, you just smell good food and you become hungry. The process here is that your DNA tells you that sugar is good for you. So you put sugar on your tongue, you go through all the process, and you want to eat more. So the bias that we have, that sugar is good for you. Now the diet, the world we live in, we don't need to eat sugars. There was a time food was very scarce. You got one meal, and the next meal may never come, and you starve to death. But then the society became agricultural, food became regular and very, very stable. Now, we don't need to crave sugar. But this mental formation, the bias, tells you the sugar is good for you. So the sanskar, the Sanskrit word, sanskar, what we say that this person has bad sanskar, which is also, people get very, very, very upset when you tell someone that you have bad sanskar. It means bad upbringing, or you have bad lineage. So calling somebody a poor sanskar is not just something directed towards you, it's for your whole lineage, all ancestors. So calling somebody that you have bad sanskar is saying, bad mouthing your whole, all the ancestors. And it makes sense here. Sanskar is, mental formation is what we carry in our storehouse of bias. So this meditation is that you sit and you think of one incident of your life and watch your reaction, that what bias could have played a role in the ultimate outcome of that event. Does it make sense? Have you ever been into a fight? A fight that you thought that you were wrong. Right? Just go back and meditate on it, that what bias had made you react like that. Have you ever felt that somebody ignored you? So our bias is that if somebody does not meet our eyes, the person has ignored us. Why do we feel bad if a friend ignores us? You don't lose money. You may not need the person for anything. But the bias is that when people ignore us, then we are in some danger, some kind of danger. When you feel ignored, you actually feel it in your body. When you are in a meeting and you feel that your voice is not getting heard, you feel kind of physical fear. And what mental formation is doing here is that if you got ignored, that means the group will cast you aside and wild animals or some other tribe will come and will eat you up. That's not true, right? So if you are feeling ignored and if you're feeling upset, you go through this analysis and then you tell yourself, you know what? I'm fine. This person's attention for me does not matter. It's nice if the person is, giving me respect, but if it does not, then I'm fine too. So what it does, your suffering stops. So all these emotions, when you start studying Buddhism, the first noble truth is called the truth of suffering. And people get surprised that what kind of philosophy or religion is this that starts with this, that noble suffering. But if you do not have suffering, if you don't feel suffering, doesn't mean that it won't be there. It is there. The human life, we are born to suffer. What Buddhism is talking about, that when you become aware of the suffering, then you work on it. Until I got exposed to Buddhism, I had a lot of suffering. And there were repeat suffering. If a person behaved like this, I will try to punish that person, and then I will suffer even more. I had a rule, is that people who are good to me, I'll be good to them. People who are not nice to me, I will not be nice to them. And that way of life was causing me a lot of suffering. But I was not aware of it. Whenever I would cut somebody down or give back, I used to feel good. I did not know that what suffering it was causing me. What Buddhism gave me is that this kind of analysis started telling me, oh, I got upset. Analysis, why I got upset. Was there a reason to be upset? It turned out that there was something that I wanted. But my mental formation is that if things are not going my way, I should get upset. No, the world doesn't hate you, doesn't love you, simply doesn't care about you. So if I kept trying to mold the world into my satisfaction, tremendous suffering. So whenever I had disappointment, I would analyze, and most of the time it turned out that the disappointment was baseless. It was based on some notion, some concept, some bias that turned out to be untrue. And coming back to the example of meetings, in every meeting, every person is trying to say something. Some people talk a lot more than others. People who don't talk much, they don't feel good. Because in our evolution, it is that if you talk, if you make sound, then you live longer. And I have committed such frustrating, I have committed frustrating actions that I regretted later because I said something just to make the sound. And now I realize that when I'm sitting somewhere, I tell myself, in this meeting, my making sound is useless. So I will stay quiet. Why people want to become presidents and prime ministers and congressmen? It is in our DNA that if you are well known, then people will protect you, you will live longer. It was true in those tribal societies when kings would have armies around them. Now, you can be a completely anonymous person and you'll be perfectly happy. Your plumbing has problem, you call a plumber. Now you can order food on the internet. You don't have to step out. So now, getting ignored or not having fame should not cause us suffering. But you will know that only when you are aware or you have the practice of meditating. Disgust, for example. When we see people who are deformed, there is a feeling of disgust. There's a feeling of disgust when you see people who are deformed or people who are sick. Now, there was a time that we had a lot of contagious diseases. So evolution wise, the area in the brain that triggers when you see somebody with deformity is that you may catch it. But when you go through this analysis, you realize that there's no reason for you will not catch that. And you can go and help. So all these emotions you can use as indicator for your meditation. And meditation is not what you do in the morning only. In every moment of your life, whenever you have suffering from an intense emotion, that should lead to this kind of analysis to find out what bias is leading to that kind of reaction in you.
So mostly focusing on the mental formations.
Mental formation. So all the 5 aggregates are called aggregates of suffering. Because we like smooth, we like to touch smooth things. We don't like to touch rough things, right? So we are always trying to go towards what is pleasant. But mental formation is the biggest source of suffering. It prevents us from seeing things as they are. And I'm repeating that bare attention in Buddhism is all about every experience you have, how you can separate out that filter part and see reality as they are. It has been my practice for the last 10, 12 years. And I cannot believe in my life where I am from where I was. I had tremendous suffering. I'm still, it's a work in progress. But I am so much better off than I was at that point. Okay. So there are 2 types of meditation. One is calm abiding, and another is analytical meditation. Calm abiding is you try to calm yourself to the point when you can do the analysis. So I'm going back to the top of the presentation here. So all our 6 entry into our consciousness, they all work together. So when you are agitated, suppose you are sitting at a very loud place, it's very hard for you to respond properly to your child when you're agitated about something else. If there's a very strong smell at a place, and if you're asked to solve a very complicated mathematical problem, you will have a problem. Right? Because they all interplay. This is what the iPhone age is doing to us. We are so distracted. So analytical meditation is that once you have achieved certain level of calmness, and that level of calmness, it doesn't have to be sitting in a cave for 6 years. It could be counting just 5 breaths. You just say that I count 5 breaths backwards. Just do that. Close your eyes and count 5 breaths of air going through your nostrils. Just do that. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then bring up an episode from your life that was not pleasant, when you felt your action could have been different. And meditate on it, that what bias or prejudice made you act that way. Do you want to share? Are you aware of any such incident?
All the time. I mean, it just happens all the time that something will trigger you. Yeah.
And if you're not careful, you end up acting, and you don't know that this is where
Or even if you don't act on it, you might be reinforcing your mental formation.
So action, I'm going back, action. So mind also has action. If you think of painful thoughts, you may not hit anyone, but you suffer. So these 6 entries into our consciousness, they're also exit points of how, our action happens. So our action is body, speech, and mind. So if you think ill of a person, you have committed a violence of mind. Getting angry, seething in your bed, in the night when air conditioning is working, and you had a full meal, you are committing a violence of mind. And it doesn't help you. The person you are upset at doesn't know that you are upset at that person. So the question is this: why do we have feeling of revenge or grievances? So the mental formation is this, that if something has hurt you or upset you, you want to neutralize that source so that that doesn't do that to you again. This is how nature has put grievances in our mental formation. In reality, if somebody cut you, off on the freeway, chances of you meeting that person again is never. There was a time we used to live in small tribes in villages, and a mean person was likely to victimize you more than once. So it was important to have the grievance so that you can take precautions. And those who are in abusive relationship, it is still true for them. And they should take precaution in setting boundaries like the best you can do. But in most cases, if you have a grievance because of something that happened long ago, right now, it's a violence of mind you're doing to yourself. So whenever you see that you're holding anger towards or ill will towards a person, have this conversation with yourself that is it your mental formation or there is a real need for you to take the precaution. If that threat, the source of threat is not there, there's no need for you to hang on to it because you are committing violence towards yourself. So now I will play that video of the Dalai Lama, His Holiness, again. And what he's saying, in Buddhism, all these are considered empty. And empty is not physical emptiness, it's empty of inherent existence. So, for example, form. You touched your chair, it was smooth. Now you move your finger. Is it still there? That sensation is gone, right? In one moment, you're looking at a news that upsets you. You become upset. Next moment, you talk to somebody you love. You're feeling better, right? So your consciousness goes through multiple cycles, every few minutes, right? So all these 5 things, they remain in a state of flux. So if you are upset now, and if you tell yourself it is empty because if I don't think about it now, it will go away. It's a solution. What happens to us is that we think that every incident of anger we have is a solid thing. I have to hang on to it forever. Okay? So I'll go back to that video and see how excited he gets.
So is that the same as the term Maya? Is that the illusion or what is?
Yes. So Maya
is that when you say they're nothing? Is that the illusion?
Very close. So Maya or illusion is when you see something, it has gone through this filter that the real image that you have actually is not the real image. It's an illusion. It doesn't mean that you are forever consigned to remain in a state of illusion. But if you go through this analysis, you cut through that illusion. So for example, your colleague walked by in the hallway and did not say hello to you. You got upset. The person was not nice to me. It's quite possible that the person had something on her mind. That's why she ignored you. Okay? So you realize that over here, if you choose that version, then your reaction will be totally different. So that is cutting through that illusion, right? Sometimes you thought that she was a snob, and yes, she was a snob. But does your existence depend upon whether she is nice to you? No. Again, it's an illusion you have that she has to be nice to you for your well-being. If you think that the next job will make you happy, and you get to that job and you find that you're not happy, so that expectation was a maya, an illusion. So it's not that nothing good happens to us. We are surrounded with good things in life. Over a few thousand years, humanity has improved a lot. But this process of cutting through the illusion, seeing your mental formation, prevents your unnecessary suffering. Okay? So illusion is these camera filters. This is Maya. See what they do in movie sets. You could be sitting here, but they'll put a background of Alps, and so that's the Maya. And through meditation, you are able to see through those layers. Any question, comment from your side?
Every situation during the day is pretty much like you don't question the results of how you reacted is a mindfulness and knowing how it could have went better and what makes you feel good about the outcome, to change the outcome, what will help change that outcome to make you feel like it didn't affect you the way you thought it did.
Yep.
That's meditation.
That is meditation. You have put it very well. That's meditation. That's meditation. It's a feedback process of what you did and what was the outcome. And once you remain in that feedback loop, then your regrettable actions will be fewer and fewer because you have learned. So that's the meditative way of living your life. Good man. Okay. So let me go back. Let me play that video one more time by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and you see how excited he gets.
Form is empty.
Oh,
Emptiness is
let
form.
me-
Emptiness is
Just
not deficient, not fulfilled. Consciousness elements. There is no ignorance, no
Material philosophy say not only that self, but also the basis of that self, distinct self. Self is the basis of that five sakyanas. Also, in ultimate reality, does not exist. Or another word, does not exist as it appears.
So this is the illusion he's talking about.
So now here one very important word is kyang.
Also, even the five aggregates of empty of.
In Chinese translation, Heart Sutra.
In Chinese translation, it says the five aggregates are empty of inherent existence. There is no mention of the word even. Even the five aggregates are empty.
So since Chinese translation, the traditional original translation, missing that word, therefore Japanese Heart Sutra, Japanese language or Korean language, Vietnamese language also is missing that word. Only Sanskrit original, Tibetan Heart Sutra is mentioned there because of that.
This has even word.
Yes.
This has
So I checked the original Sanskrit. It does exist.
Yeah, it has even. Yeah.
So this you see teach us to Dhamini.
Two because of selflessness.